The Nile flowed like a liquid spine through Egypt. It nourished the land, a silent guardian of its people. Bardia watched the river from his courtyard. His two daughters, playful as kittens, chased each other through the reeds. He smiled, his heart heavy. War was coming. Bardia was a warrior, strong and skilled, but he was also a father. His daughters, Nefertari and Isis, were his world. He had taught them to fish in the Nile, to read the stars, to love the stories of their ancestors. The thought of leaving them, of going to war, filled him with dread, but duty called. The king, a vain and ambitious man, craved more power. He sought to expand his kingdom, to conquer neighboring lands. Bardia had sworn an oath to serve him, to protect Egypt. He was torn between his loyalty and his love. The summons came at dusk. A lone rider, his face etched with dust and fatigue, arrived at Bardia's door. He carried the king's seal, a golden hawk with outstretched wings. Bardia knew what it meant. War. He looked at his daughters, their laughter echoing in the courtyard. A knot tightened in his throat. How could he leave them? How could he bear the thought of them growing up without a father, their lives forever marked by his absence? But a warrior did not question his duty. A warrior did not shy away from battle. And Bardia, despite the turmoil in his heart, was a warrior. He embraced his daughters one last time, their small arms clinging to him. Then, with a heavy heart, he mounted his chariot and rode towards the rising sun. The journey to the northern border was long and arduous. The desert wind whipped at Bardia's face, carrying with it the scent of sand and fear. He thought of his brother, Setna, who lived across the border. They had been close as children, inseparable in their games and adventures. But war had driven a wedge between them, forcing them onto opposing sides. Setna was a skilled warrior, known for his cunning and his ruthlessness. Bardia dreaded the thought of facing him in battle, of spilling his brother's blood. They were bound by blood, by memories of a happier time. Now, they were destined to be enemies. The conflict gnawed at Bardia's soul. How could he fight for a king who was so willing to sacrifice his people for glory? How could he reconcile his loyalty to his country with the love he felt for his brother? The desert stretched before him, a vast and unforgiving expanse mirroring the turmoil within him. The king, a man named Sekhem, welcomed Bardia with false smiles and empty promises. He spoke of glory, of riches, of expanding their empire. His words dripped with honeyed poison, designed to seduce and deceive. Bardia saw through the facade. He had seen the fear in the eyes of the soldiers, the desperation of the families torn apart by war. He knew that Sekhem's ambition would be their downfall. He tried to reason with the king, to appeal to his better nature. But Sekhem, drunk on power, refused to listen. "You question my judgment, Bardia?" Sekhem hissed, his voice as sharp as a serpent's tongue. "You dare defy your king?" Bardia held his ground. "I speak for the people, your majesty," he said, his voice calm but firm. "They yearn for peace, not bloodshed." Sekhem's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on the armrest of his throne. The seed of doubt had been sown. Section 5. The Lion's Heart. The arguments continued for weeks. Bardia refused to back down, his resolve fueled by his love for his daughters, his people, and his brother. He saw the toll the war was taking on everyone, the fear that gnawed at their hearts. He knew he had to act. One night, driven by desperation and a growing sense of dread, Bardia sought out the king. He found Sekhem in his chambers, surrounded by maps and battle plans. The air was thick with the stench of wine and ambition. "Enough!" Bardia said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "This madness ends now!" Sekhem laughed, a cruel, grating sound. "You would defy me in my own chambers?" he sneered. Bardia drew his sword, the polished metal glinting in the torchlight. "For Egypt," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. The lion in his heart had awakened. The clash was swift and brutal. Bardia, fueled by righteous fury, fought with the strength of 10 men. Sekhem, caught off guard, could not match his ferocity. In the end, the king lay dead, his dreams of conquest scattered like ashes on the wind. Bardia stood over the fallen king, his heart pounding in his chest. He had taken a life, even the life of a tyrant, but he knew it was necessary. He had chosen his people, his daughters, his brother, over blind loyalty. As the first rays of dawn pierced through the darkness, Bardia emerged from the palace. He stood before the assembled soldiers and announced Sekum's death. A hush fell over the crowd. Then a single voice rose, followed by another and another. They hailed him as their king. Bardia, the reluctant warrior, became Bardia the king. He ruled not with an iron fist, but with a compassionate heart. He sought peace with their neighbors, negotiating treaties and forging alliances. He understood the true cost of war, the pain and suffering it inflicted. He sent word to his brother Setni, inviting him to meet. The reunion was filled with tears and forgiveness. The years of bitterness melted away, replaced by the bond of brotherhood. They vowed to stand together, to protect their families and their people. The weight of the crown rested heavily on Bardia's head. He knew that being king was not about power or glory. It was about service, about sacrifice, about making difficult choices for the greater good. Years passed. Egypt prospered under Bardia's reign. The Nile flowed freely, its waters nourishing the land and its people. The markets bustled with trade, and the sound of laughter echoed through the streets. Bardia's daughters grew into strong, intelligent women. They married for love, not for political gain, and bore him grandchildren who filled the palace with their joyous laughter. He taught them the same lessons he had learned: the importance of family, the value of peace, the courage to stand up for what was right. But whispers of the past lingered. There were those who yearned for the days of conquest, who resented Bardia's peaceful rule. They plotted in the shadows, their hearts filled with greed and ambition. Bardia knew that the price of peace was eternal vigilance. Bardia ruled for many years, his reign marked by wisdom and compassion. He never forgot the sacrifices that had been made, the lives lost, the families torn apart by war. He dedicated his life to ensuring that such darkness would never again engulf his beloved Egypt. When he finally breathed his last, surrounded by his loving family, the people mourned. They remembered him as Bardia the Just, the king who had chosen peace over power, who had united a kingdom and healed a family. His legacy lived on, not in grand monuments or tales of conquest, but in the hearts of his people. The Nile continued to flow, a silent testament to the enduring power of peace and the courage of one man who dared to choose love over war. Bardia, the reluctant warrior king, had found his peace, and in doing so he had given peace to his people.